we got to go over the whole Rob background and journey, I think, too, while we're at it.
Yeah. So this is, I think, year 23 for me. Um, I started, so yeah, oh 03, oh 04 was my first year, and was an assistant girls track coach. Eventually became head girls track coach. I coached football for a while. I coached cross country for a while. And then I think about 10 or 11 years ago, I was tired of being a head coach, so I wanted to move over to the guys side. And be an assistant just so I wouldn't have to deal with all the head coach logistics.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Now, what got you into the sports performance speed training world?
So I never wanted to do it, honestly, like the private stuff, just
Mhm.
because, I dealt with it like 6 months out of the year, essentially, plus, with what we were doing with track. So it actually was during COVID. Went like right when it went down, I went for a lot of walks. Like I was just walking around my neighborhood like all the time. I like more than normal. I love going for walks, but I was walking around all the time. And then that was the only time I would see my neighbors, right? So I kept running into this guy who had a daughter that was in high school, and she ran track, and I just wear HF track apparel, right? Like that's because I have thousands of HF track apparel shirts. So he's like, "Oh, you coach track, can you work with my daughter?" And I said no like 3 times, and then he asked again, and I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." So I had some equipment in my garage just from my own training and that kind of thing. So I started working with her, and I found that I actually enjoyed it because it was a different setting. Because with like jumpers, I have about 25, 26 guys that jump, and then our sprint groups probably dang near 100 kids. So that setting's a little bit different than working with someone like one-on-one or even
Yeah,
within a small group. So I found that I enjoyed it, and then word of mouth kind of has kept things going. Honestly, like I don't do too much promotion. I work with a few people. People have reached out and contacted me, from some of the writing and stuff that I do, and uh, yeah, and it's just been kind of rolling ever since then.
that's amazing. I still remember you were the first person I knew that had a SHREDmill. I think it was December, God, it was late November, early December of 2022. I went to your
Yep.
garage and I remember you had it was cold. I think you had one or two girls in there and you had the
Yeah.
space heaters in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yep.
yeah, no, it was amazing. That was my first taste of seeing it in person. So what's the garage setup looking like right now?
So still have the SHREDmill. I have a better heater now. I mean, even when it gets, below zero, we can get it up to about 55 degrees. So that's much more enjoyable. And I got a rack, I got a hex bar, I got, a few different specialty bars. I have a Swift jump mat that I use now, Muscle Lab contact grid. I have a Muscle Lab laser and Dynaspeed. So those are the primary things, as the spring, summer kind of rolls around. Sidewalk runs will be including those. So, but the SHREDmill's a staple regardless, for sure.
For sure. Now, how do you, I guess, blend or combine all of the, I'm going to call them speed gadgets that you have into, because a lot of people I feel like that have treadmills or want treadmills, they have 10, 8, they have other pieces of,
Yep,
tech. And I was just wondering how you kind of blend it all together.
sure. So in the private setting, usually what would happen if I'm going to use like my Dynaspeed, which is like the 1080, and the SHREDmill. It would be mostly like gear two for SHREDmill, and then like out on the sidewalk, it would probably be like a either light resisted or assisted or variable uh, resistance, where maybe heavier resistance to lighter resistance run on the Dynaspeed. So that would be kind of like part of a potential circuit, but those would be maybe how I would utilize those together. In the school setting, our guys tend to do SHREDmill in their PE class. So Adam Vogel he came in, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. We had like three sections of what was called strength and performance, or I forget what we used to call it. Well, now it's called strength and performance. So we had three sections of it. Now we have like over 20, so like an increase of like 700 kids, which is insane. So most of our track athletes are in that course, and they will utilize the SHREDmill during the school day. And then when they come to us, we'll utilize the other stuff. So that's kind of how we break that down.
That's really nice. And that's got to be nice too from your end that that acceleration bucket is getting covered for the most part during the school day to where you guys can address other things or whatever you
Yep.
want to do.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean it's huge for sure, and it works really well. They sprint 1 day a week, so like in the fall and into the winter where we can't have like specific contact with the team. Our kids are getting a weekly sprint dose, so they're running like fly times in PE class, and then they're getting shred mill work once or twice a week in addition to that. So it's really just a perfect preseason that they're getting from August through December, and then they're out with us in January. So it's pretty incredible.
Oh yeah, that is incredible. How have the results have they been noticeable since getting the treadmill since Adam came along?
Yeah, absolutely. He compiles data because he's a data nerd too. So just like the collective average speed of students has gone down or has improved. The times have gone down. And then like when you look at like our top tens, they've improved substantially, like the average of the top 10 and that kind of thing. So there 100% has been definite change for the better. And
Like,
like how we're performing on the track too. I think the depth that we have has never been better, and I think that's a big reason why.
I can totally see that. Now, as far as you have your sprinters, your jumpers, your throwers. Does the programming and everything, and no, obviously I don't know how much you handle that, and Adam or the collaboration between the two of you. Um, I guess I'm asking how you utilize the treadmill with those different events in track.
Yeah, really, I think you look at any speed power event, really 80% of it's the same. So when you're looking at throwers, jumpers, sprinters, like they're all speed power. So the vast majority of training is going to be the same. The differences will lie within the technical components of each event. So there's really not much difference. When I consult with a lot of coaches who they deal with like being understaffed, which is super common, right? So they have to deal with sprinters, jumpers, hurdlers all together, and throwers. I mean, really, you can run a sprint day with all of those groups. And that would be benefit, splits, sprints, plyos, strength stuff, like all those events need that, in my opinion. So there's just a lot of commonality there. So outside of the technical piece of the actual event, they can all basically be trained the same.
For sure, for sure. Now you mentioned the speed and power athletes. Do you guys ever have any, track and field athletes that get on there? And these a little bit more these endurance aerobic based athletes as
Sure.
far as seeing the benefit from getting a little bit more of that horizontal, speed and power work from the treadmill.
Yeah, I think we have like our 400, 800 group that would utilize it in class, and I think we've had some pretty good results with their improvements in just general speed. So yeah, I think that it's helpful on the private side. I've worked with a lot of like middle distance athletes, and we're still hitting gear two, uh, you know, regularly with them, and I think from that standpoint for them, it's like something that they aren't getting. So uh, when you look at kind of like a bucket analogy of what athletes are getting in their own like programs, and I think that's something like from the private side, like I'm always thinking about, like I honestly go into most private sessions like not really knowing what I'm going to do because I don't know what they're coming to me with. So, uh, once I get a handle on what I think it'll be, it makes it a little bit easier, but you just never know. So, uh, those mid distance kids that I work with, I know that they do not have access to a shred mill or they're
Mhm.
not doing much resisted running. So it's a bucket that can be filled that I think can assist them in their development.
For sure. Yeah, I'm right there with you as far as, whatever plan you have. going into like a private session, you're probably gonna end up throwing it out the window because
Yeah.
they might have done 5 sets of 10 squats in class, then they had practice and all that other stuff.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
being definitely adaptable. What type of athlete do you mostly see on the private side?
It really varies. I've worked with a lot of soccer players. I've worked with a lot of basketball players. Right now, I have like a girls track group that's consistent. I have a few softball players, so it's been kind of all over, honestly. Um, yeah, football guys. I've worked with a bunch of football guys. So in the summer, I usually have one or two football groups. So yeah, it's just mostly, like I said, it's just kind of a word of mouth thing, and
Mhm.
I take in whoever. I try to mesh them with a group. I like to. I prefer like working with groups of three or four as opposed
Yeah.
to just solo, right? I think it just creates a better, like, more competitive, enjoyable atmosphere for everybody. So I try to place them with um, like sport if possible, but mostly just kind of more like along the lines of where they're at training age, even because I think again, like sport specific training, like I, I don't know if that like you could 100% like throw together like basketball, football, soccer
Mhm.
in the same session and be totally fine with you know what they need in terms of distinguishing themselves from their competition.
Oh, for sure, for sure. How many athletes do you think you're seeing out of your garage? Because it is funny because the more people I talk to that have shred mills, there is a much larger like population of coaches that are starting to run almost full-fledged businesses out of their garage. I was just curious.
Yeah.
I know it's not your full-time gig, obviously,
Yeah.
but yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah. Right now I have about 10 that I'm working with, which
Okay.
amounts to like three groups that are consistent. In the summer it usually picks up a little bit. My availability opens up. I mean, that's the most difficult part of the thing that I'm doing now with the private side is just balancing my schedule with track, with what my kids are doing, and then the private side of things, and then everybody else's schedule, right? So like, um, because most of the time, there's sometimes where they're part of the same team and they come and see me.
Mhm.
That's great. That's easy. Or there's siblings or something like that. That makes life a lot easier. When they're, like the track group that I have, they're all on a different team, right? So finding that common time to meet varies. Summer, obviously, things open up more, and then in the fall, where I'm not coaching, I have more availability. So it kind of is in flux, and it's weird how it's worked out, honestly. Like around this time. I can really only handle about 10 kids. And I've never really had more than that during a track season. And then in the summer, it can pick up, and it usually does, and that's fine. And same with the fall. So I've just got kind of lucked out with that more than anything, I think.
Yeah, that is nice that you do have that ability to be flexible, depending on the season. Like right now, winter, spring, you're pretty jammed, so you can kind of limit your clientele, but
Yeah.
then you can open it up a little bit, and obviously as your schedule grows or as your
Yeah.
schedule opens. Pardon me.
Yep.
Oh, that's really nice. That's really nice. It is interesting too because that's why I want to kind of talk to you about coaches potentially wanting to go more into that high school setting or being a teacher because I love that schedule. You can coach a sport, you can be a strength conditioning coach, volunteer for your school. And then there's also times too, like in the summer and the spring, you have those breaks where you have flexibility to run something on the private side. Or,
Hmm.
hey, you can go on vacation too. It just seems like the work-life balance is much better than, being at the college setting.
Sure. I could see that. I mean, I don't know if there's ever a time where like there is like actual work life balance. I mean, right now I honestly feel like I'm just crappy at everything I do. Like I feel like I'm, it's just because you're pulled in so many directions, right? Like I feel like at times like I'm a crappy husband, a crappy dad, a crappy track coach, crappy private sector guy, so, and it's just because there's just so much going on and you can't really dive into one thing. So I guess maybe one piece of advice for like younger people is like when you're just starting out, like I would, and maybe you don't have family or things like that. I would dive in and just create as much opportunity for yourself as you can to kind of set yourself up for maybe being able to pull back from that as life demands increase. But I am 100% in agreement that at the high school level in particular, um, there the stability, I think, of the teaching was something that attracted to me to it just in general, like kind of having a set schedule was something that I found appealing. Um, you know, having a lot of days off was also a perk for sure. So I could definitely I see that as a viable option, and this is like a soapbox thing for me, but I 100% feel that PE is the most important class that kids take throughout school. It's a shame that it's not a requirement in all states. I think it should be. And I look at like the culture like Adam Vogel has built here in that strength and performance course where, we have over 20 sections of that. And I think that is absolutely amazing. And it's really setting kids up for, being healthy the rest of their lives. And it's the one class that I think translates to everything else. Like if you are more active and, uh, you have that kind of mental break in a way during the school day. I think it enhances everything else.
100%. I know I just got off the phone with another coach from Indiana, and the same thing about you guys, these really well ran PE classes and high school strength conditioning programs, and providing a super positive, high energy experience for these kids right from the get go.
Yeah.
It actually makes them want to be there and want to work out and be active. It's so important.
Yeah, it really is. You know, and when you walk through there, I mean, the kids are just super engaged. They're pushing themselves. It's an amazing setting for sure.
Do you ever step on that treadmill during if you ever have a free period? Show the kids what's up.
It's in the other building. Adam's getting more, I believe. So we have two campuses, a north and south building. I mean, they're on the same campus, I should say. We have a north building and a south building. So the shred mills are not in the south building where I teach. But if we get one in our south weight room, it could be something that I'll get into.
So funny. I'm just envisioning the Homewood Flossmoor staff and faculty. There's going to end up being a mandatory one time a week training session over at the performance center, and then you guys are leading it.
Yeah, that'd be cool for
Oh,
sure.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess before we end this, pick your brain. We're in the middle of track season about how you would go about some in-season programming and obviously utilizing the treadmill maybe within some of that in-season programming.
Sure. So like for our guys, they're pretty much just going to hammer gear two. For the most part. We would, I think, have them do gear three, like, and then gear three drops. But our top group is we can do similar things with them during our practice with the other toys that we have. But if we didn't have those, that would be something that I would certainly do. And I guess that coincides with how I handle the private side. So with the private side, like now, for example, we just started um, gear three drops with the high school girl group that I'm working with. So we'll work through that over the next few weeks. I see them about once a week. So that'll be kind of something that they'll utilize it until their transition into it. It's kind of prolonged, honestly. Like I know, the gear three drops can be, kind of traditionally prescribed for maybe 2-3 weeks. We extend that out a little bit. So it's just like a slow roll of the gear three drop
Yeah.
more than anything. So that'll be something we do over the next 4 or 5 weeks for those girls.
Okay, I got you. Now, would you utilize the shred mill as part of when these kids are going into the kind of like their strength train for the week, or does it obviously vary depending on the setting that you're in?
I think it varies on the setting. So like a lot of the athletes that I work with privately are doing some sort of strength work already.
Mhm.
So then if they're doing that, then we're pretty much going to hammer the speed piece and maybe contrast it potentially with one lift or some sort of strength item that maybe I see a deficit on. If now within the same group, I could have an athlete in the private setting that is not getting the strength stuff. So then they would do that in conjunction with SHREDmill. In our PE classes here, they're getting both, right? They're getting the dose of SHREDmill with the strength items.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That is the beauty of having a very cohesive support staff from,
Mhm.
obviously for you guys, the sports side of things, but then Adam with the strength conditioning and the PE, it's so cohesive. It makes everybody's life so much easier.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, no,
The only thing we run into is our schedule is weird. So like kids don't have strength and performance like Monday through Friday every day. So that's the only thing we run into that's a little complicated, I'd say. A kid may have it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday versus another that has it Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So that can kind of jumble things up. But for the most part, we can make those appropriate adjustments.
yeah, for sure, with communication and all that
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yep.
All right, so as a long time then, I guess, Shredmill owner, what would be a piece of advice, tips for future Shredmill owners, current Shredmill owners? It could be from like anything from the maintenance side of things to maybe a favorite circuit exercise. Could be
Sure.
anything.
Yeah, I would say like the most important thing initially is just I would follow the traditional protocols for sure. It gives you a good feel about like what you can do. And then from there, like I think it's important to just kind of be creative. So uh, I messed around a lot with variable resistance on the SHREDmill. I think variable resistance runs, we do it with the 1080 and Dynaspeed a lot. But it's kind of like a all stop shop for what you're looking for in terms of a sprint. I think you get the heavy resistance on the front end and then a lighter resistance as you go. So if you sit there with the magnet and you just start it with it at like an 8, and as the rep goes on it can be a 5-second rep, could be a 10-second rep, but you just slowly raise the magnet to like a resistance of 3 or 2. Maybe an incline anywhere from 5 to 10. I think that provides a pretty unique stimulus. So that's something like that I'll do pretty regularly.
Really, I've never, what's fun? I've
Yeah,
never heard of anybody doing that. So you would set it like it had gear, so a little bit of an incline,
yeah.
resistance 8 to start, and
Manual raise the magnet.
yeah,
We
no,
do that. Yeah.
that's interesting. It makes total sense though.
Yeah. So I wrote an article on the SHREDmill, and kind of went through like comparing SHREDmill with motorized devices, 1080 Dynaspeed. And within the article, I was like, that's one downfall of the SHREDmill is it doesn't have variable resistance. And
Yeah.
then Josh was like, no, you just move the magnet. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good point. So I started doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, because that magnet it slides
Yeah.
pretty damn
Yeah.
easily too.
Yeah. So, and like there's a skill to it. So like you'll see the velocity, like initially you might be doing it and then you yank it up too high and it spikes and whatever, but then you can kind of get a gauge and, you can watch the velocity climb the entire time, which I think is really cool. It's what we're looking for with the variable resistance as well. So like on the 1080 and Dynaspeed. So, that's why I like doing longer reps with it too. So, you get like 10 seconds in that, and the kids like it's like in between. Like most kids, I feel like aren't a huge fan of Gear 2 unless they're really good at it
That's
because it's hard, right? Everybody tends to love Gear 3, I feel like, for the
uh,
most part. Like even if they're not great at it, it's still like a little bit easier, right? So this is
yeah.
like somewhere in between. But I think it kind of covers both items. So it can be used for maintenance. It could be just like you wanna get some gear 2 and gear 3, but maybe only have a few reps. So instead of switching between gear 2 and gear 3, you just get this set and you kind of get a little bit of both.
I mean, it's actually, I mean, it is genius because I was doing something to where we were doing almost like I call it the modified whatever gear 3 drops. Where we're going from like a heavy gear 3, 5-4-3, but then we were doing it separately, different
Yeah.
sets. But you're accomplishing
Yeah.
that, because we wanted them to get faster with each set, right?
Yep.
Um, but that accomplishes that within, one set, and it's a very efficient way of doing it. You're right, a very unique stimulus.
Yeah, yeah, I think it works really well. The other one that I think we've all come across the kid that does gear three and they prop themselves up a little bit,
Oh,
right? Right.
yes.
So at first I was just like, well, that doesn't count. And that's fine. Like if you're keeping record of it and whatever, like questionable. But I do think it's kind of a way to train over speed. Or like it's just
Mhm.
because you're unweighting yourself. So you'll see the frequency is going crazy. And
Yes.
I'm like becoming aware that, with all the data that I've seen, like stride frequency is really, I think, the main barrier to go from like really, really good to elite.
Hmm.
So I think that would come on down to like if there's I think it's important to do things that would improve stride length. But most of that is just your really good traditional training. Like that's how you're going to improve stride length. Stride frequency is a little bit trickier to train, and I think that's kind of a hack that the SHREDmill offers. So it's different than like doing overspeed or assisted sprinting on the 1080 or Dynaspeed. I think this is more of like overspeed from a frequency. It really emphasizes the frequency piece, where with the SHREDmill, or I'm sorry, with the Dynaspeed or 1080, it's kind of helping with the contact time component of it. It's going to naturally increase that stride length a little bit, and you do get a little bit more frequency because your brain's saying, "Hey, I got to get this foot down, or I'm going to fall."
Hmm.
So it's there is a slight difference, I think, and I think it's both are really really valuable.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And I was thinking about that too, is from the overspeed component. And especially I feel like if you're in a group environment, your competitors, once they figure out that when they raise their bodies up,
Yeah,
the speed increases, it's hard to get them to be like, all right, I know you found the cheat code,
yeah.
but let's try to, but there is some inherent benefit to it too. Maybe you can obviously throw in that lifting yourself up as just another gear three variation.
Right. Yeah. So like when we do, like we have our gear three number that I track, right?
Yes.
So that's where I want it to be. I want them to be honest. But like when we do gear three drops, I don't really keep track of that like too much. I mean, I will a little bit, but it's not like the main metric that we're capturing. So there it's just like, yeah, go crazy. I
I
won't
love
say
it.
anything initially, and then like if they do it on their own, fine. If they don't, like when we're peaking, I might say, hey, just try to lift yourself up a little bit. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, that's awesome. They probably go nuts once well, it's like a light
Yeah,
bulb going off when
yeah,
they
yeah,
realize it.
yeah. And they're like, why does that happen? I was like, well, you're essentially you're unweighting yourself, so you're just gonna spin a little bit faster, and that's okay.
Well, thank you, Rob. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
you're welcome. Have a good one.
You as well.